everyone. Welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We had a little bit of a late start. Hi, Sandra, Contessa. Hi, Victoria. Hi, Laura Lee. Thank you for taking my frantic text just before we got started. Hello, Denise Smiths. Thank you very much for being here. It's good to see everybody. It was a weird, did anybody else have a weird week? It was, we had such crazy, it was heavy through like April, beginning of May. Right. It was, I appreciate that, Laura Lee. This week was just weird, like weird, unexpected things going on energetically. Last week, everybody was kind of like walking defensively. So it was kind of like duck and cover energy last week. This week is a little different. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with Laura Lee and I last night on Beneath the Hollow Moon. That was a lot of fun. Coming up this Thursday on Beneath the Hollow Moon, we're going to be talking, it's Gemini season. That makes sense. Hello, Michelle Willifong. Laura Lee and I are going to talk about haunted amusement parks. Gearing up for the summer season, right? Victoria, thank you. So Astrolight Paranormal, thank you very much for all the support this morning. I'm very excited to announce that we've got everything in place. So I will be at the Smith Falls, the Station Theater, November 1st doing Love Life Afterlife. And we will be able to do the VIP investigation of the theater after the gallery event. So I'm really excited. And Victoria is going to be there with me. So it'll be a lot of fun. Lots of fun stuff coming up in the fall. I know. I'm pretty excited as well too. There's so many things going on. Let's bring out today's guest. I was really well, I'll make my confession in a second. Because too much information and a lot of transparency all the time. Author, filmmaker, researcher, Mick Ricksecker. How you doing?
Hi, Carolyn. Doing really well. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. I can't tell. When you're having one of those days where the seams of your socks kind of bother you?
Yes.
Like everything feels a little uncomfortable.
I know those days. Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And so one of the things that's coming up this fall is the Lake Superior Paracon in Thunder Bay, and you are going to be one of the presenters there.
I am. I'm excited about that because I've never been to Thunder Bay before. So all the way up there in the outer edge of Lake Superior somewhere. I just know it's like that way.
Yes.
Somewhere.
Go north.
Right.
Yeah. Go north.
I had to look it up because a lot of times I will try to drive to as many events as I can. And that one's probably a bit of a far reach for me. I didn't realize it was that far. I think it's like 18 hours for me or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, that's going to be a little much. So
I did the 16 hours for me. I'm outside of Toronto and made a stop to see family along the way. It's a beautiful drive. It's a beautiful drive, but it is like steep hills and round bends. And then I ended up giving myself like panic attack when I was driving and cursing myself. Why did you agree to do this? Why did you agree to drive on your own? And I was like deep breathing and my goodness. So Laura Lee Potvin is one of our hosts here on UPRN, and she lives in Thunder Bay.
Oh, fantastic. Well,
Yeah, and so she can attest to the amount of paranormal activity that there is
mhm.
in that area. And Sandra was, oh, that's so good. So Sandra was one of the participants last year, and it looks like she's coming again this year. So we
Great.
will be seeing Sandra there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting so many new people. Again, I haven't been up there before, and just even looking at the speaker list, it's like, oh, a whole bunch of new friends to make. This will be wonderful.
Yes, and this is it, right? It's a growing community. You get to
Mhm.
expand the community.
No, that's great.
Um, so Michelle DeRoche, our network manager, who I know that you have
Yeah, I'm very familiar
connected
with
with.
Michelle. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've known her a long time. Yeah.
Right, ditto. I've known her a long time as well. So she has shared this story a number of times with me on the drive, because she's from Northern Ontario as well too.
Mhm.
There is, on the way from Sault Ste. Marie, in between Sault Ste. Marie and Wawa, which, I don't know, 3 hours, maybe less than, but
Okay.
on that route there was, she shares this story about a friend who's a truck driver, stopped on route at this, it's motel restaurant
Mhm.
place, right?
Okay.
And all the lights on, music on, grills are burning, and nobody is there inside the
Oh,
restaurant.
yeah.
Nothing happening.
That's not, yeah, that's not unusual at all.
Nope. So apparently, this truck driver gets in his truck, goes down the road, because I can't remember. I was looking for them, but I know, like, not that long ago
Mhm.
there was 2 payphone stations where you could, like, the Bell payphones,
Mhm.
dial up, and yeah, he called the police because he wasn't going to stick around to figure out what that was.
Yeah.
So, question: time slip? What would that be? Potentially.
Yeah, I mean, potentially a time slip. Um,
And
you know,
explain what a time slip would be.
yeah, so a time slip is really because time doesn't really exist. And so this is kind of the premise of my book travels through time, talking about stacked time theory, where if all time is concurrent, past, present, and future, and this is based off of Einstein's idea of the block universe. If all time is here, past, present, and future, take where you're sitting right now, all those moments that have ever been, are right now, and ever will be, they're all there with you right now. And I liken each of those moments to a photograph on a giant stack of photographs, each one resonating at their own frequency. And we have these uh, times in which two of those moments in that stack will resonate at the same frequency for a moment. And the past will see the future, and the future will see the past. And that's what we call a time slip.
So, if you experience that time slip, that's life altering, your perception, right? Would
Oh,
it
yeah, it definitely can be. Absolutely.
affect you? And so, how does deja vu play into all of that?
Yeah, with deja vu, and I actually get that question a lot. Um,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. No, it's a good question. People are curious, how does deja vu play into that? So, a lot of times with deja vu, we are getting, I mean, for us, it's almost like a memory. Like, have I been here before? Am I remembering something? I think a lot of deja vu moments are snippets out of dreams that we have. That a lot of times when we have a dream at night and we come back, we don't necessarily remember all the details, and sometimes we'll even go to try to tell somebody, I had this crazy dream last night, and you can like remember one or two details, and it's all kind of fuzzy. But then, something will happen down the road. It's like, wait a minute, I think this was apart from that dream that what was that? And so it's kind of like a deja vu. And a lot of times, not all the time, sometimes dreams are just fanciful in nature, but we enter into different brainwave states when we are dreaming, and our consciousness can become free floating and be able to visit these other moments in time and get to see them play out. And then we come back, and all of a sudden, like, the next day or a week or a month later, the whole scene plays out before us. And we call that we fancifully call it a premonition, but really, we had a time travel sort of experience. And if we're only like getting a snippet of that, then that would be our deja vu moment. But I also think that we have some deja vu moments. Again, with all time existing and ever present, I do believe that we also reincarnate. So we would have multiple lives here with us. And so if you walk into a historic building or something, and all of a sudden you're like, this seems really familiar. Yes, it could be something out of a past life, and that past life might even be there with you right at that moment. So there's a lot of different ways we can look at deja vu.
No, I don't want to agree to that.
Okay.
Was there an opt out for that part? I'm not sure. And it's so funny because I did my guest last week, Marilyn Kaufman, talked about past life regression. That's all we talked about, past lives and reincarnation, past life regression.
Okay.
And I had said to her, I just assume that I have been all of it. Nasty, kind, tall, short, male, female. I don't really want to know. But what am I doing on Monday? Past life regression with Marilyn. So that we can come back and talk about it again. But
nice. Yeah, my partner, Catherine Swin, she's a QHHT practitioner. So a big part of what she does is the past life regression. Yeah. So yeah, I've gone through a few, and they're absolutely fascinating. It's interesting to see how elements from those past lifetimes will follow us along. Like they are an inherent trait of ours. Like I have, seen past lifetimes where, I was a scribe in different varying capacities, which, it's like, okay, yeah, no kidding. I'm a writer. So that makes sense. But yeah, a past lifetime in like a medieval setting, another one in Greece, another one where it was like the United States somewhere in the 1800s, so it's been really fascinating to see those.
Yeah. She gave me some homework, so I've got to figure out, some things that I want to dive into. And I said, really, the only reason that I'm interested in doing this is because last summer, Spirit Switchboard, I'm in my second year here with UPRN and doing Spirit Switchboard.
Okay.
And through that, we get to meet lovely people like you, which opens up the concepts to different levels, right? And had somebody coming on talking about Mike Clelland's messengers and owls being connected to aliens. And I'm like, had this memory pop up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm texting my siblings, do you guys remember those 3 owls that we had? And then my brother's like, yeah, remember I saw that bright orange light behind the barn and that light that happened? Like, oh great.
Nice, very nice.
So that's what we're going to explore on Monday. That's
very cool. Yeah.
So we'll see where that rolls. If we are talking about, can our consciousness tap into, if it can, like in a deja vu moment, so timelines, can it do backwards as well too, alternate realities as well?
Yeah, since again, time doesn't really exist. It's just a human construct, something we've created to describe our reality. I mean, we feel like we're stuck in this river of time, and it's a good analogy. But it's really, again, kind of that illusion that's been pulled over our eyes, or it's a control set that's been placed upon us to keep us kind of flowing down what we call this river. And when we take a look at that analogy, the water itself in the river is time, not the whole entire river. It's just the water, and it's the banks are what are keeping time controlled and moving downstream. Well, if you were to remove the banks of the river, then all that water would flow out and would be like one giant pool, just kind of stagnant and staying still. And that's what time would be if you were to remove that rule set from us. So with that said, you could move about it, any way that you see fit. With time, that is our fourth dimension. According to our theoretical physics, we have up to 11 dimensions, 0 through 10. And so those other dimensions above ours, 5, 6, 7, 8, and onward, would have access to time like an object, like we do any three-dimensional object. So that means that we can move up and down the we can move up and down time if we were to figure out how to do that. And I believe it has more to do with meditation and consciousness and these sorts of things. And we have these, again, these bizarre moments like time slips where we have interactions with these other moments in time. Something has happened where two of those moments are resonating at the same frequency. And, I believe I've seen this happen at different times in my own life where I've interacted, not necessarily with the past, but with the future as well, kind of back and forth like that. Or the past has interacted with me to create like this bizarre recurring cycle. And I'll give an example here. So we were years ago doing a paranormal investigation at a place in Muskogee, Oklahoma called Johnny V's. And it was an old restaurant. And we were really just finishing up the investigation. A couple guys up in the bar area. I was out in the front restaurant, or a couple of others were out in the front restaurant area, and I was going to do a last photo sweep. And I'm walking through the main kitchen door, and all of a sudden, there was this wisp of a shadow that just darted across the room, and bang, it smacked into this. It was a little metal door that was on the side, very flimsy, just something that waiters and waitresses could carry large trays of food through. You could tap this thing, and it would move. But the thing is, you heard the bang and it didn't move. I call out to the others, hey, did you guys hear that? And you're like, yeah, we heard it. And I kind of describe what happened. They're fascinated by it. And for a second, I thought they were messing with me. Like maybe they threw something at the door or whatever. And he even asked me, did you guys throw something at the door? No. So I even went out the door and I'm looking around on the ground. There's nothing there. And again, if they had thrown something at the door would have moved. So it's like, what's going on here? And so I had a lot of theories for a number of years as to, okay, was this something interdimensional, or what was going on here with this thing? Did it see me as a ghost or a shadow, and maybe I scared it and it took off running, which I do believe happened. But with my more recent work on time and time travel and all that, I do believe that it was more of a time slip where it saw me as an apparition or a ghost, or maybe it saw me as me or a shadow or something, and I scared it. And could this be, let's say if this was a time slip, was this somebody from the past, maybe 10, 20 years beforehand, that all of a sudden now was telling this ghost story? Hey, this place is haunted because I saw this thing come through the kitchen door. And is the reason we were investigating there to begin with? Did I create the haunting that started this whole thing for us to even be there to begin with?
Okay, so how is it frequency? Was it your frequency heightened that would have potentially opened that up, or theirs, the mix of both? Theirs,
right? Yeah,
and yours that creates that perfect opening.
Yeah, and I think that's the trick is and we don't specifically know what those frequencies are, but yeah, they all have to kind of sync up. And I wasn't necessarily
magic, though.
Yeah, they all kind of have to sync up, all be on the same frequency. My frequency, the person on the other side, the moment that we're in, it all has to be that whatever that perfect frequency is for that to happen. I do believe that we can do this through meditation. That again, it has more to do with our consciousness. That if we can set that frequency while meditating, I can give another example here, and not my own story, but the famous German poet Goethe. He had recounted a story in his book Dichtung und Wahrheit, or Poetry and Truth in English, where when he had been a younger man, he was walking down the road, and this was like late 1700s. He's walking down the road toward Drosselheim, a town in Germany, and he's having an affair with a young woman there. He's kind of lost in his thoughts, thinking about this young woman. And then all of a sudden he notices off to the side of the road, there was this man in this gold-trimmed gray suit, and he turns to get a better look at the guy, and all of a sudden disappears, like out of thin air, just gone. He's like, whoa, what the heck happened there? Where'd this guy go? I just saw him. can't do anything about it because he just disappeared. So he continues on toward Drissenheim. Well, years later, he's walking down that same road again in the opposite direction. And as he's getting close to that area, he starts to remember, oh, this is where I saw that guy disappear. And then all of a sudden he realizes, wait a second, I was the guy in the gold trimmed gray suit. I'm actually wearing the suit right now. It was me all along. So then the question becomes if he saw himself, what happened? What was the catalyst for him to be able to see himself? Well, I think what it was, if we go back to the beginning of the story, him being lost in his thoughts. It's a type of meditative state when, like, today we say we zone out. We're driving down the road, we zone out, we miss our turn or we miss our exit. We're like, darn it, I got to turn around and go back. We do it all the time. It is a slightly meditative state. It's not full meditative state, because if you're in a full meditative state while driving down the road, you're probably going to get in an accident, but it's still a partial.
I'm going to comment about that when you're done your story.
Sure. So, it's at least a partial meditative state. And I believe he was able to tune into his own frequency in that moment, got a glimpse of himself. And when he decided to, fully turn and concentrate on that moment, he broke the frequency. He broke out of that meditative state and lost that connection.
Okay, so I have so many, the 18 tabs open during that.
Sure.
18 tabs opens during that story, so get ready. Okay. So would there be different, so all those different timelines overlapping, like the photo over a photo over a photo? Mm-hmm. So it just happened to be that one
it's like it's like a giant stack of photos. So so they're all on top of each other. And two of those moments in the stack just resonate at the same frequency, end up bleeding into each other. And you end up getting a glimpse. Sometimes it's just, you might see a person or two out of that. Sometimes it's like a whole scene that plays out in front of people, like what they call the Versailles time slip, where you had these the two head school mistresses that were walking together through the gardens of Versailles in the late 1800s, and all of a sudden it was the gardens of Versailles, pre-French Revolution, and an amazing vision for them. So it kind of happens, depending on the strength of the energy at the moment. I mean, these are things that we don't quite know, that we're kind of speculating on, but
when it's happening unconsciously, that person having that control with because it's really about breath work, right? It's really that being able to get into that state through breath. So are those people able to get there naturally on their own without that forced conscious thought about, I'm about to go into meditation with this intention, and just allowing it to happen?
Well, I think people can. Yeah. I think, inadvertently people do, whether it's through breath work or, Goethe's lost in his thoughts. I think people can set an intention and meditate and have that moment. I think different people are able to do this in different ways. But I think it does all come back down to the consciousness and energy vibration. I mean, we know that everything comes down to energy, frequency, resonance, vibration. So, yeah.
I've had this experience while driving. I talked to Michelle about it, actually, and she's like, I'm stumped. So question passes tag, you're it. While driving, I have had this, because people talk about time speeding up. But I mean, we can manipulate time if that's what we're needing to do, right? Depending on where things are at. But when driving, I have never had that time speeding up feel. I have been in the car where when we stop and everything is still, we're all stopped at the stop, it's red light, we're stopped, nobody's moving. And it feels like I've moved backwards on my computer backwards. And it's those frequencies or those experiences are happening with more frequency, where it's literally where it's slipped back 30 seconds.
Interesting.
Netflix, back 30 seconds. And I'm like, I come back I feel myself back, and I don't feel like I've gone anywhere. I'm like, did anybody else? There's nobody in front, nobody backed into us. Anybody else? I'm looking to see if other drivers are having a reaction. And it's just me.
And it's just you. Interesting.
It's me. Isn't that weird? Michelle's like, I don't know. I don't have that speeding up kind of thing, but okay. Yeah. Stumped you too, right?
Well, I mean, people are experiencing this reality in different ways. And I think people that are, more really kind of more in tune with the frequencies of the universe are more apt to have these sorts of things, people who are more open to this. So, yeah. And I think people experience it in a variety of different ways. The idea of, well, I mean, there's a couple ideas when you take a look at time speeding up or slowing down, or people have time loss events. It's a little bit different than, just getting older and saying that, well, as I've gotten older, it seems like time is really starting to speed up. Well, that's our perception, because a year is, right now I'm 50 years old. A year right now is 2% of my entire life, where when I was 10 years old, a year was 10% of my entire life. It was a much bigger part of my life than it is now.
Right?
Yeah.
And then if you think, like, I'm probably not going to live to 100, so I can't say I'm in midlife anymore.
I am. Oh, I'm trying to live to 126. So
are you really? Good for you. My
I want to see the
grandma
year
and her
2100.
sisters are older. Yeah. Like, they were in their hundreds. My grandma had siblings that lived into their hundreds. I'll be 54 this summer.
Nice.
So
very nice.
There is that potential.
Yeah, I've had several live into their 90s, like their mid 90s. So yeah.
As long as we're healthy, I'm good. I'm okay with it. Right?
Absolutely.
So we're going to go off topic just really quickly. Then we're going to go back on topic, because Sam's pretty normal. My sweet friend Sam is here. Sam, please follow Sam on her YouTube channel. She does help support and produce Bigfoot Banter with Richie B as well too. So this is her question. Sam also is a filmmaker as well too, and she is saying, I'm loving Mike's audio and camera quality. Do share what you are using.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a Lewitt microphone. It's a Behringer soundboard that I have it plugged into, and it's a Sony. What is the exact model? It is a NX Cam. I can't see the model number from here, but it's a Sony 4K NX series. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Laura Lee is sharing, was looking forward to seeing Mike Ricksecker. I found out about him on my friend Jason Bland's show quite a few years ago. Thank you.
I recognize Laura Lee. And yeah, Jason Bland has a great show. I've every once in a while I'll pop up on there, and I think I first showed up in his show 10 years ago or something like that. It's been a long time. Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. Michelle is asking, is it possible that we're meant to see these time slips, or is it just chance?
I think it's both. I think some we are meant to see, kind of the universe making sure that there's something that that we have an experience with, and then some I do believe are just chance. Yeah.
Thanks, Denise. Denise was just going to ask if time slip and bleed through are the same or similar.
Yeah, pretty much. You could probably interchange those terms. I usually use time slip, but a lot of times I'll say two moments are bleeding into each other. So it's, yeah.
Hi, Howie.
Oh, Howie. Wow. Been a while. Great to see you.
Orion Effect on the Rift Nation Network, Sunday evenings, folks. Please check them out. You're quite welcome.
And you're welcome.
Yes. Again, kind of like sideways a little bit. As a kid, it's going to happen a lot.
Well, I do the same thing on my show on Connecting the Universe, where you'll have remarks and questions and things like that in the chat, and that's part of the experience. It's supposed to be interactive.
Yeah. Saturday morning cartoons. What'd you watch as a kid?
Oh, wow. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons.
Did you watch Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, absolutely. I was when I played Dungeons and Dragons as a kid, I was the dungeon master. In fact, it was crazy when Stranger Things first came on, because I had people reaching out to me because the show started off, they were playing Dungeons and Dragons. They're in the basement. Mike is the the dungeon master. And that is pretty much what I looked like at that age. And this was back in the 80s during that would have been the exact year that we did it. And all of it was like, so I had people call, that is you, that's our childhood. I'm like,
right. All of my kids, and my youngest was just 20 yesterday. He was 20 yesterday. Very dungeon master as well too, and has different campaigns with different friends. And
yeah, my kids got into that, and we did a bit when they were kids. I introduced them to it, but really it was COVID. When COVID hit, they started playing D&D with their friends. Yeah.
Would you step through a time portal if you knew that you were not coming back through?
And I've been asked this one before too. And here's what I say about that. Yes, I would, but I would leave a note, because there's so many people that go missing that, like out in the wilderness. And I get into in Portals to the Stars, portals out in the wilderness and people going missing and things like this. And it's like, you can reasonably conceive that some of these people did disappear through a portal. If I knew it was there, I would leave a note saying, hey, found a portal, I'm going to step through it. If I don't come back, you know what happened. So people aren't wondering for, ever
where you went.
Yeah.
Do you think that happens for people that go missing in places like parks, national parks and stuff like that?
Yeah, it happens. I mean, some of the stories that are told are just absolutely bizarre. Like you'll be walking next to a buddy and all of a sudden your buddy disappears. Or people that do come back have some really bizarre stories that they tell where they'll say, yeah, I was walking down the path, heard a noise off to the side, decided to see what the noise was, took 2 steps off the path, couldn't discern what the noise was, turned around to get back on the path, and the path is gone. And now I'm lost out in the woods for days. So did they step through a portal, took them to another point in time or to another place within the woods? There's different possibilities on the table, but something happened. They stepped through something. And portals are naturally occurring in nature. And even science has admitted this, like NASA with their X points out in space, that they're like, these are portals. And they've sent up satellites to go check them out, and there's no predictive model for it. They just open and close at random intervals. They open up at different sizes, but they can't predict when they are going to open, and all they can do is study when they do. So
is there a difference between a portal and a vortex?
Yeah. So
if we add wormhole into that too,
right? I mean, they're all related. They're all related. Yeah. So a vortex is, really that's spiraling energy that comes up out of the ground. It can generate portals. And in fact, the ancient symbol that we see throughout cultures all over the world for a portal is the spiral. And that's really the spiral is the 2-dimensional representation of vortex energy. So and this is energy that comes up out of the ground, starting from the Earth's core, and as it's passing through the mantle and the crust, it's interacting with different metals and minerals, and depending on the type of metal and mineral it interacts with and the quantity of it, it creates these different localized electromagnetic fields that can spawn the portals in these areas. But this is why, like, the ancients were doing things like building pyramids and stone circles and things like this, was to be able to harness that sort of energy and be able to control the portals and things like this.
So all that sacred geometry isn't just...
It does. Yeah. I mean, that's all involved. Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Sam's comment. Thank you, Sam, for being here. So all of the missing 411 people in the National Forest could be explained how they vanished without a trace?
I mean, I would say some, not all, because I did a lot of work with like the Alaska Triangle and a lot of the missing people and disappearances up there. And they even have a missing persons clearinghouse up there, because they have more than twice the national average of people that go missing up there. But you do have people that go walking out into the wilderness and get eaten by a bear. I mean, we have evidence of that. Or some people are just looking to get away from the world. I forget the gentleman's name.
Prepared.
Yeah, or not prepared. And I forget the gentleman's name, but he just wanted to get away from the world, went out into the wilderness in Alaska, found an abandoned school bus, kind of set up shop in the abandoned school bus, and and then they made the elements. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mish is saying portals, or are they vaporized as they go through?
Well, I don't think they are vaporized when they go through. I think that it takes them, and there's a number of different things that can happen. You can, like if we're talking, like kind of your classic portal, wormhole, Stargate thing, which a Stargate is basically an intelligent being that has harnessed portal technology, for lack of a better term, and has bent it to their will, so they're able to go in and out at their leisure. But yeah, they go somewhere, whether it's across the cosmos, somewhere else here on Earth, to another dimension, to another point in time. A lot of these missing, like airplanes, we kind of covered this a bit on the Alaska Triangle television show, where a lot of these missing airplanes could be going through a portal. And one of the examples that we use is Bruce Gernon's experience in 1970 in the Bermuda Triangle, where he went through this. Basically, it was like a funnel in the sky. He likened it to an electronic fog, and he zipped through it, and he suddenly ended up on the other side near Miami. He traveled he got there like an hour sooner than he was supposed to. So he jumped ahead in time. But if this is possible, that you can jump through some of these portals in the sky like this to another point in time, what happens if you go back in time instead, say like 500 years, and in a place like Alaska, if you were to suddenly go through a portal going back 500 years in time, and the indigenous people in the area see your airplane, what are they going to liken that to? Because they have no idea of what airplanes are. So is this where like some of the Thunderbird legends come from?
Yeah, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Like thoughts, perceptions, and oral stories. But would there not be an oral history? Like, or do you think that, I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are oral histories of, and we saw these big, giant, loud, thunderous birds in the sky. Yeah.
Or triangular shaped alien craft at the same time. Laura Lee's asking, have you had any experiences with the chronovisor? Also, what are your thoughts regarding, does time travel already exist?
Yeah, no experiences with the chronovisor, but I do believe time travel already exists. That that we have seen instances of this, and where we kind of see this play out. Even though I can't, turn and look at a person and say that's your time traveler. I think we see this play out a bit when we have experiences with the Mandela effect, and I don't mean like the, where all of a sudden we've got all this people remembering branding being different. Nobody's going back in time to change branding. I mean, that's just too trivial. Nobody's going back in time to change the spelling of Fruit Loops or something like that. But I will say this about that: there can, or Berenstain Bears or something like that. But there can be effects, ripple effects through time. If you were back in time and change something completely unrelated, the ripple effects, the butterfly effect following that could lead to some of those changes where, like with Fruit of the Looms, is cornucopia or no cornucopia? Well, maybe the person that came up with that artwork, drove by a fruit stand one day and saw the cornucopia with fruit, and that ended up being the logo. But if something changed in time and he ended up not on that route that day and didn't get inspired by that, then maybe it ended up not being there. It was just the fruit. So these ripple effects, I think we see play out, and then we're scratching our heads years later like, I remember this differently, and so do millions of other people. So what gives?
Do you think that we're meant to know all the answers? Do you think that we're being prevented from some of the truths?
Some of the truths I think are hard for us to grasp because they are beyond this universe. Now, all the knowledge of the universe is here with us. So everything that has been known to time before us is available, and all the knowledge of the universe that's going to happen ahead of us is also here, because again, all time is here, which means everything that has been learned and is going to be learned is also ever present with us. So this is why I think, like, guys like Nikola Tesla was so far ahead of his time. I mean, by like 100 years, where he's talking about technology, whether it was cell phone technology or artificial intelligence or drones and these sorts of things. He was talking about this in like the 1890s, and everybody laughed at him, but we have that technology today. So I believe he was tapping into that knowledge, and everybody laughed at him because it was just too far ahead of everybody else's notion of the universe. But I think there are some things when you get outside the universe, when you get outside the dimensions, we go back to source. There are things there that I don't think we're ever going to fully know until we get back there, because it's not within the construct of this universe.
So do you feel when everyone has a different thought or opinion about what potentially is coming up, everybody could be speaking a truth, but just tapping into different timelines or different realities at the same time?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a grain of truth in most everything. So yeah, you could have somebody over here that understands a piece, and you have another person over there that understands a piece, and they might not fully know it all, but they might have a part of it. And it's like trying to figure out, okay, which part of what you have is correct and which part of what you have is correct. Yeah.
And how influenced are we by our cultural belief system, childhood traumas, any of that stuff that
and there's all that too, of course. We're an amalgamation of our experiences throughout this life. So, but then we also have other lifetimes we've been a part of.
That's right.
So,
it gets
we're bringing things with us. Yeah, and it's interesting because I do believe we're bringing things with us from past lives. I already mentioned the writing aspect of me. I've seen that in some of my past life regressions that I've done. But I also believe that we are bringing, through our genetics, there are memories and things that we are bringing with us that might not have anything to do with us, but have to do with our ancestors. If they place that genetic marker in there before, your grandfather or, grandmother or whomever was conceived, then that's something that is going to get passed down. And, sometimes it's switched on, in a person, sometimes it's not. It's just, but that's getting into like how DNA and genetics work and all that.
Yeah, which is a whole full other 2-hour longer show.
Mm-hmm.
Can it affect us physically, emotionally, mentally? Doing all that timey-wimey portal time travel stuff? Can it affect you? Or how does it affect you?
Well,
there are some questions off to the side as well too, but that was something I wanted to ask before.
Yeah, affect you like in what ways? Mentally, physically? I mean, because I think it all does in a variety of different ways. One,
are there dangers to it? Maybe that's a better way of phrasing that question. Are there dangers or things to be mindful of if you are going to?
Well, I mean, as far as dangers, I mean, I think people can kind of get lost in sometimes lost in continuously where they're trying to continuously go to these other timelines and all that sort of thing. People become obsessive. And so I think that can kind of be a dangerous thing where you might lose touch with your own life that's going on here to do these other things. Like if I suddenly, just decided to full bore, all I'm going to do is just write from here on forward. And, I start, forgetting to do things like, I don't know, pay the bills and things like this, because I'm just so obsessively focused on this one thing. And then other aspects of my life start to fall apart, whether it's relationships and things like that. So, I think that can become a danger. So there's a balance there with that. I mean, that's just one example. But, yeah.
Michelle Plummer, you know how much I adore your humor. So frankly, I'm grateful that there have been movies created to help put some of these ideas and concepts out for us to consider, which is what its purpose is, right?
Well,
to
yeah, there are a lot of good films out there that have explored this. So, in Travels Through Time, I do make a number of pop culture references because as I'm explaining concepts, I don't want to get like too sciencey. So, although there is, a decent deal of science within it, kind of back up the ideas, but to give people an idea of okay, what does this look like? Okay, think of this film, whether it's Somewhere in Time or Interstellar or some of these others. I'll use those as examples along the way.
Interstellar is one that I go back to all the time,
Mhm.
repeatedly.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite films. Absolutely.
Yeah, for me too. Laura Lee is just sort of following. She's not just sort of. She is
Mhm.
following up with what she had asked earlier, and your response. Maybe a paradox is created to cause these
Yeah,
observations for temperamental effect.
yeah, absolutely. A paradox is just the timeline interacting with itself. So, when I talked earlier about when we were investigating Johnny V's, that we could have been the reason why we were investigating there to begin with, because if again, if I had interacted with somebody from like say 20 years beforehand, then and they report, oh, this place is haunted, then 20 years later, there we are investigating because of ourselves, which is paradoxical.
That's so trippy.
Yeah. And I see your other comment there about the Akashic records. Yeah, the Akashic records, Carl Jung's idea of the collective unconscious. All those. I mean, I call it eternal knowledge. I think it's all different names for the same thing. Yeah.
So, what places have you visited where the ley lines have contributed to those,
Yeah.
or have like? Is there a place that you're drawn to the most? Has it switched and changed? Could you tap into that?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've been really drawn to Egypt. We
Yes.
do an annual tour there now, and Giza Plateau. Yeah, the ley lines are crossing, or we call them ley lines. And I usually say, yeah, the ley lines is like the layman's term for what's going on, because really it's the and nobody uses this word, but it's the telluric currents of the earth. Actually, I'll say Freddie Silva uses the term. It's the earth energy lines. They're called the telluric currents. And when they cross is actually known as a conductivity discontinuity. But who's going to say telluric current and conductivity discontinuity? It's just like ley lines and nodes, right? It's so much
But
easier.
once you say
Um,
it, because you make it sound like the alphabet, you make it sound like it's just rolling off your tongue like butter. So,
I don't know
yeah,
about that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Because
but
you've
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, the ancients figured this out, and they use old school methods like dowsing rods and things like this to go find them. Um, so yeah, they would build the pyramids on top of there. They would build their stone circles, and over millennia, they all ended up lining up because on that path we're following the energy. So Alfred Watkins 100 years ago is kind of walking across the English countryside. He's like, hey, all this stuff lines up, and then he writes the book, The Old Straight Track. Um, which is great. But yeah, they were tapping into that those energies for whether it was for healing purposes. Of course, they had a lot of different types of rituals that they would perform around these circles, and they had these astronomical alignments. They were entering into altered states of consciousness, and I do believe that they were doing things like opening portals and this sort of thing as well.
Um, do we know how many major places there are on Earth that are like that? Those major centers where they would cross?
Yeah, I mean, we call a number of those we call triangle areas, like Bermuda Triangle, Alaska Triangle, Dragon Triangle, those sorts of
Right.
things. Ivan T. Sanderson had what he called the vile vortices, which were, most of them were along the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, and then there was the North and South Pole. And if you connect all the dots, it was, it turned out to be Anicosagon, a perfect 20-sided
Right.
uh, shape, which again, Dungeons and Dragons, hey, there's we turned the
Yeah.
earth into a 20-sided die. Great. um
Yes.
yeah, exactly. But it's like I think people along the way have like started this research for us. So Sanderson's vile vortices, yes, he was definitely onto something, but it wasn't all inclusive, because we know places like Sedona. you know,
Right.
extremely powerful area. It does not fall anywhere, within those vile vortices, but we know it exists. We know that whole area of the American Southwest is extremely powerful. The Alaska Triangle, of course, is not on there. That's a little bit too far to the north, but not quite the North Pole. So I think he was onto something, and he helped us with this research to realize, yes, there are these very, very energetic areas in which bizarre things happen, but yeah, we are finding them in other parts of the world too.
And so us doing those rituals, or our energies, or all of us meditating, doing a drumming circle, whatever, doing our chants,
Mhm.
are we contributing to that energy, and making it
Yeah.
more powerful and opening up?
Absolutely. You go into like the middle of Drombeg Stone Circle in Ireland. It's a smaller stone circle, and just standing in the center of it and just simply talking, it all of a sudden feels like you're in this bubble. And I know it has to do with the resonance of my voice off of the stones that are around me. And it's like, wow, okay, if I'm getting this effect from just talking, thousands of years after this thing was built, imagine back in its full glory when all the stones were there and they weren't weathered down like they are right now. And I'm chanting, right? That would be extremely powerful if you get the right frequency with those chants. The idea of sound technology, healing through sound, and that sort of thing. You do some really powerful things with that.
So then, could you time travel back into that space, or could you astral travel back into that time period when they were all there?
I believe you can, yeah, because that moment is
Yeah,
happening
it's
right
there,
now in at
accessible.
Drumbeg. Yeah.
Craziness. Um, off off topic,
Okay.
on topic. Mike looks like Captain
Nice.
the Angel on Supernatural. Is that
No, I
something you've heard
appreciate that.
before as well?
I have, yeah. But thank you.
Well, you took that with much grace. Okay, Mish is our friend in Australia. So there's a lady here in Australia who talks
Mhm.
about going and sending love and singing to the ley
Yeah.
lines and giving them love. Her name is Rachel
Oh,
Vaughn.
wonderful.
She was a child who was caught up in that negative world for children.
Mm.
Yes, and thank you for the subtle reminder that it's time to do the station ID. Thank you for that. So if you are just joining us now, thank you so much for being here. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. And our guest today, I'm sorry that I didn't put this up earlier, Mick Ricksecker is here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you once again. Yeah.
I was going to pepper you with these at the end, but I think I'm going to do some of them right now, if that's okay.
Okay.
I was going to do some lightning questions with you, but we're just going to spill them in here and there. That's all right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sorry. I went sideways a little bit. If you could pick, like, your time travel forward, backward, where would you go? Have you done it? Sideways.
Yeah. Again, I think I've had some time slip moments. There was one time I did try to intentionally travel through time, and I have tried since, but my mind gets so cluttered. It's just I have too much going on. But when I was about, well, no, not when I was about, I was 14 years old. Um, so we had the year prior moved from where we had spent 10 years in Massachusetts to Ohio, basically returning to Ohio because that's where we were originally from. But all of my friends, everybody I had grown up with really was back there in Massachusetts, and I was homesick. So having watched Somewhere in Time many times, and that idea, that concept of Richard willing his consciousness from 1980 back to 1912. And I think that is more of what real time travel would be, more to do with the consciousness. I was going to try to do that myself. And so I was lying there in bed one night. I was going to try to go to the year prior so I could go visit my friends one last time. And so I'm lying there in bed and I'm trying to do like what he did, was like just convince myself that that was the previous year. And I got to this point where I was feeling like these undulating waves. And it was kind of rocking back and forth. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I'm not sure what's going on here, but yeah, nice waves. Okay, cool. And then it got to this point where I started having like this feeling like electrostaticky sort of feel, and that spooked me, and I just snapped out of it. And years later, being involved with the community and talking with people, it's like, oh yeah, you're about to project, you're about to have an out of body experience. I was like, oh, okay, wow. Now the question is though, would I have gone back in time? Would I have projected to another point in time, or was I just going to project out into my bedroom? With my theories on time travel right now, the fact that kind of taking that idea of where you're sitting right now and all time is there in that spot, I also have to throw out there, would I have projected into that room a year beforehand and spooked the previous family?
Yes. Yes. So Mish is saying, I feel I've changed timelines. So let's see if it will pop up there. I feel like I've changed timelines. So would that be like subtle changes to things in your space, physical things that you notice about yourself? What would that be?
I think it's changes in this timeline. I know people kind of get into the whole, jumping timelines or jumping from one universe to another and that sort of thing. And I'm not so much on board with that sort of thing. Kind of smacks a little bit too much of like the Marvel universe. They even in the Marvel universe even uses the idea of a tesseract, but they have it as a glowing blue cube that opens up into a portal. It's like, that's not what a tesseract is, but okay, go with it. Yeah. So there are
up to the concepts though.
It's introducing people to the concepts, which that I don't have a problem with. It's getting people to think and be open to the idea of it. There are other universes out there, but other physical universes, outside of our own. They're even talking about, now you've seen this, some recent studies that are showing that, our universe is actually inside a black hole, which means there's more stuff that's out there. So there are other physical universes out there, and the thing is, when this universe ends, and even our ancient cultures and symbolism show this, that the universe is going to restart and recycle and redevelop as the universe again, just another one. But yeah, I think it's more of we're in this timeline that we're in right now, and changes happen to it as we go along the way. Obviously things from the past influence the future, but the future also influences the past, and then we feel those changes up through the timeline, like we were talking about the Mandela effect, but other subtle things too. It doesn't necessarily show up as what we call the Mandela effect, but those ripple effects happen, and we're like, yeah, something's changed, something's different things are happening now. And that's just the way that the timeline works. It changes as we go along.
Can that happen if more people are having that experience at the same time?
I think when more people are having that experience at the same time, more people are becoming aware of it. And I think that's like a paradigm shift that we're experiencing right now, is that, we're in a fantastic period in our history in which, we're able to talk about these things now. We're able to have these sorts of discussions and not be deemed as crazy or whatever. There was a period of time where we couldn't do that. So it's kind of like, we had that almost like that Renaissance era back in the 1800s with the spiritualism movement. And now we're kind of experiencing that sort of thing again. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people are more open to these ideas and concepts right now. So more people are feeling the effect of those changes along the timeline.
Right. I just wish there was less buzzwords that get used without really understanding or
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
those buzzwords. I think I feel you kind of just answered that, but I wanted to bring it up and put it here for you. So Laura Lee asking, because time is a man-made concept, which she agrees. Explain the concept of past, present, and future are happy all at the same time. Having heard this many times before.
We're all happy at the same time. I don't know if they're all happy with each other, but but they're all here at the same time. Yeah. It's so again, it goes back to well, Einstein had the idea. He called it like the black universe. And I call it stack time theory. And there's different ideas and
happening,
concepts.
sorry.
Happening. Yeah, all happening at the same time because it's all here right now. So so what we call time is the fourth dimension. We are multidimensional people. Our fourth dimensional consciousness is inside our third dimensional body. From the fourth dimension, we have access to all of those other dimensions below us. So point, which is 0 dimension, line, the flat plane, like flat surface, and then 3-dimensional objects. So I have complete access to this 3-dimensional object of the water bottle. Well, from the fifth dimension, again, fourth dimension is time. From the fifth dimension in sixth and seventh, they would have access to this, to time the way that I have access to this water ball. So you mentioned Interstellar. And that's, the way that they depict that was when Cooper had access to every single moment of his daughter's bedroom. And he had to find the right moments to send the message back. So that was him having access to all time at a single location.
Yeah. And then we all start crying at the same time.
We all start crying.
we all start
Don't
crying.
let me leave, Murph.
Oh.
Yeah.
Brutal. It's so good. If you could describe a shadow being in one word, could you describe a shadow being in one word? How would you describe
Nope.
a shadow?
Just straight up, nope. Can't do that. Except to use the word shadow or shadowy or something like that. Because, these can be all kinds of different things. And I get asked a lot, what is a shadow person? It's like, I have a whole, I did. Yeah. I was like, I have a whole book on that for a reason, because, as humans, we try to, compartmentalize everything, very kind of neatly. And so it's like, okay, what's a shadow person? And this is what it should be. And it's like, well, no. Aside from the fact that, yeah, they are shadowy, but they can all look different. They can be very solid. They can be very translucent. They can just be a wisp. They could be a mist. They could be a full humanoid figure. They could be wearing, hats and things like this. They could be hooded figures, all kinds of different shapes and forms and things like this. It's just basically the way that our eyes are taking in the light. We only see into a very, very narrow band of the spectrum. So yeah, some of these, sure, some of them are human spirits that can't fully manifest as an apparition. Some of them are interdimensional in nature. They're an interdimensional being. Some are extraterrestrials. Some are time slips. Some are light beings that you're just seeing the core of the being. The light is beyond, our senses. Some of these are, actually, projections of people that we are seeing. And so there's a lot of different things that these can be. And it's just, I tell people, this is where you need to put on your paranormal investigator hat and try to deduce what exactly this particular shadow may be.
So what would be the first steps that you would encourage people to take if they were going to try to investigate what a shadow person?
And get as much information as possible. Physical characteristics, sure, they can help. Situational aspects are very helpful. And sometimes it might take years.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're looking from a scientific, then you have to repeat the same experiment for data research repeatedly. And is that even possible to do that?
And right. And that's one of the problems with the paranormal field, is trying to make that not only it happen repeatedly, but you also need a control object. So if you're trying to prove or disprove that a place is haunted, well, you need as a control object a place that is not haunted. Well, how do you prove that that place isn't haunted for your control object?
Yeah.
So, so this becomes really, really challenging, especially when some of these things are so random in nature. Like you can't make these things happen consistently, right? A lot of times
And
it's like you're seeing all of a sudden something just out of the blue, just walks down the hall, and you're like, "What the heck was that?" But it doesn't happen like every Tuesday at 3 p.m. If it did, then you could try to
right.
prove it or disprove it. But that's 99.9% not the case. But yeah, I mean, it's
And
just
your
like
mood, your frequency, where you're at, who is
yeah.
with you, lunar
Well,
position,
that and
who knows? Like,
that and you can have two people standing next to each other, one sees it and one doesn't. And I believe that's because, and I do get into this in the book, everybody has their own personal resonance. We all, human beings have a standing resonant frequency anywhere between 9 to about 16 hertz, and everybody's a little bit different. And each of those things that we are seeing, which are already hard to see to begin with, also have their own frequency. And I might be, and I know I'm more in tune to shadows than say apparitions. I see them, I won't say often, but I see them more often than I do other things. And so it's, when I believe when I get into a room that is going to have one of these, types of beings, that I'm able to tune into it much better because my own personal resonance has become more in tune to it. And so it's more at that resonance of these beings, where somebody standing next to me, maybe I'm a 10 and they're like a 14, and the thing that we're looking at, maybe is like a 10 and a half. So I have like a better chance of seeing it than this other person that's next to me. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a whole bevy of things that we could
so when
dive
people are
on.
seeing that they're a magnet for those things, they're not understanding, like, it's just their term. They're not understanding maybe that they're the frequency of
Right.
or in alignment with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They become more in tune to these things. And I know for me, I am, because I had these interactions, with two different shadow entities when I was young, one when I was 8 and one when I was 13. And the one when I was 13, was happening on like a regular basis. Again, nothing that you can make consistently happen, because the guy, I ended up calling him Tom, like Peeping Tom, because he would peek his head into my room, and this was like when we first moved into the place, and I'm unpacking boxes, putting things away, and he'd poke his head into my room, and then I turn and look at him, and off he'd go running down the hall. My mom saw this thing too. And so, but she wasn't alarmed by it or anything. And she was like, because I had asked her after a few days of this, "Mom, are you seeing this?" She's like, "Yeah, I've seen it too." And she wasn't alarmed by it. So I got playful with it, and I called him Tom, like I said, like Peeping Tom. And so,
Right.
yeah.
So
But
funny.
yeah, it's not like I could, be like, okay, every day at, 2:22 p.m., he's poking his head in my room. I mean, no.
Is it frequency and how we respond, though? If we are more open to, sure, come on in, I'm okay with it, not going to freak out. Like, so they're attracted to that as well too, or they understand, or they're can sense that you are going to interact with them if that's what they're wanting to do. I don't know. There's so many questions.
Well, there might be a degree. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a degree of that too. I mean, if you seem to be more open, I mean, a lot of these beings, might be trying to communicate. A lot are just watching, observing. They're just checking things out. If they want to get interactive, maybe they will make themselves more known to us. Yeah.
Their own intentions and ours. Is there a connection between shadow people and portals, or those high energy places where the ley lines cross, or vortexes? Is there more frequency for that to happen there?
Yeah, so that was part of my idea for the Shadow Dimension. That's my series, 6-part docu-series that's running on Tubi TV and the Roku channel. I wanted to go to places that are known to have portal activity, and to see if there was more shadow activity that was happening there. And I mean, Yeah, any of these energetic places of the world, do seem to have more of this activity going on. Whether that's because the activity is helping the phenomena to manifest, or the energy is attractive to these type of beings. The portals that can open at these places, sure, they would be a conduit for these beings to move in and out from their realm into ours. So yeah.
I love that you called that shadow figure Tom. One of the questions that one of my least favorite questions to get asked is what my spirit guide's name is. Like when I have a session or in gallery, like how would you know if I was telling like a truth? Like for your spirit guide's name, how would you know, right? So I tell everybody the spirit guide's name is Bob, because Bob don't care, but I'll show you how to get there, right? So forever, I'm going to see shadow figures and think Tom.
There you go.
Yeah. Nice. So do you have a question that kind of like is one that so that all other podcasters that may potentially be listening, our ears are perked, a question that's irritating for you? Like, that sounds bad, but we do. There's questions that just give you that stink eye tight butt moment.
Yeah.
Man, here we go again.
I mean, there are some questions that I get a lot, that have to, kind of repeat the story, and which is stuff like, how'd you get started? What was your first experience? That sort of thing. Or, what was your scariest experience? I'll get that question a lot, and it's like, or, what was your scariest moment on a paranormal investigation? And, that one is like, I don't even have an answer for it, because I can't really say when I've been scared on a paranormal investigation, because when things would happen, I'm going after it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm curious. Right. Yeah. So
that's why you're there.
Yeah. So I have to tell them other stories. Yeah.
And it's interesting. So that was my confession. I said that I had a confession that I needed to share at the beginning, sure. and I didn't. And it was, normally I've read a lot more of the guest books than what normally I read a lot. I'm a ferocious reader, stacks of books everywhere. Nice. Most of them looking at me like, why didn't you pick me up first? Of course. Right. And I didn't get through as many as what I had wanted to get through for today. But then that's me too, where I think I have to take all of the books at one time and get everything crammed into one interview. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Just not gonna happen. And you've been traveling. Can you share where you've been?
Are you saying you didn't read any of my books? Is that what's?
No, I did read some of them, but not as many as I wanted.
Okay.
I was hoping to get through more, but I'll let you know how many I got through by October.
Okay, sure.
My stack. Here you go. Please sign. Because I like the smell and feel of books too, right? So,
of course.
Yeah, it's nostalgia and comfort.
This one. Absolutely.
Book. Okay, so travels, where you've been right now. Wait, we're just finishing, because you've been very busy.
Yeah, and I'm about to go back on the road on Monday. So, the big place that I was just at was the UK. Spent almost 2 weeks out there. Started in Ireland, ended up in Scotland for a few days, and then down into England. Yeah, visiting a lot of these ancient sites, like Newgrange, Avebury, the Rollright Stones. Went up to Loch Ness.
I've been following your social media posts. They're great.
Thanks.
Two of you. It's fabulous.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So it was a wonderful, wonderful tour. Yeah.
And it hooks people in and makes it exciting. Like, I'm excited to see how you're going, like what you're going to share. So I know that you're writing about it. So it gets everybody excited for what's coming next, right?
Yeah. I've been blogging about it. Actually, I did not blog about. I just posted a blog earlier today. I did not blog about it today because there is the big thing that came out this week with the scans from the Egyptian labyrinth. So I kind of sidestepped for a second. But yeah, I did the blog on Ireland a couple of weeks ago, and so I'll have more. So that's Connected Universe blog on Substack there. So I'll have more of that information coming out, and then yeah, of course, it'll all end up in a book, but
Yeah.
and then videos and all that stuff on my
Yeah, it's
YouTube channel.
brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Mish has a question about shadow beings. Do shadow beings feel
Yeah.
different in different countries?
That's an interesting question. So I wouldn't say feels different. There's different legend and lore behind them. So when you talk about like old hag syndrome, well, people from all over the world have been talking about this being sitting on their chest, either being shadowy or the old woman or a ghoul or whatever,
Oh,
different forms and all that.
yeah.
And they'll have different names for it, just depending on the culture. But they're all talking about the same thing that's been going on for, thousands and thousands of years. Even like in ancient Sumer, they had it was called Alu, and it was the same thing, So not necessarily feeling different, but there's some different descriptive characteristics that they might mention, and they'll have different names and some legend and lore that might be behind it in other countries. Yeah.
And would they feel different because we put different energy into it? So if you have more people that are pouring that energy into the belief of what they feel that entity is, does that create it to be that?
Well, there's that too. I mean, a lot of people think that, a shadow, they wake up, they see a shadow in the corner of their room, and then, it must be demonic and all this sort of thing. It's like, well,
Oh, it's
no.
irritating.
Yeah. And that's another one that always just drives me nuts. Not necessarily the question, because when I get the question, I do discuss it. But when, somebody says, well, all shadows are dark and evil and nasty in the first, it's like, well, no. It
Well,
depends on the shadow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I always question what their motivation is to say that. So are you somebody that goes in and takes care of it, and you're wanting is there a reason why? What is the what's behind that opinion?
Right. And I think a lot of times we just stuck in fear. People fear what they don't understand. And I get it that, if it's um if it's one of those situations where you wake up in the middle of the night and it's in the room, well, I mean, it's intrusive. And honestly, the first thought in people's minds when they see that image, when they wake up, isn't, oh, there's a shadow person here. It's usually, oh crap, somebody's in the house, somebody broke in. There's an intruder in the house. That's usually the first thing that goes through their mind. And so their adrenaline's already racing in that situation. And then when they realize it's not an intruder, it's a shadow, well, their adrenaline's already heightened. They already have that fear within them of, the whole intruder aspect of it. So yeah, so it's energy that is being put onto this that isn't necessarily true.
And and if you are just kind of waking up to, depending on how you've hung your clothes on the chair, that
Well, that happens too. That
yeah.
happens too. But yeah. And honestly, and this is one of the things that drives me nuts is, the medical community. And you can, find, documents on this on like NIH's website and all this, where they'll say, well, the whole shadow person aspect is, just people that are still hallucinating while, coming out of their dream state. And it's like, well, wait a second. People see shadows all kinds of time, like during the day. It might be broad daylight. And they might see a shadow walk through the woods or walk down the hallway, or things like this. It's not always in a situation of waking up from sleep. So yeah.
And I don't know. I think I'm okay with not knowing all the answers. I just think I wake up every day and it's like Christmas. I wonder what's going to happen
There
today,
you
and I'm
go.
open to any experience, right? Because it's all freaking magical.
Mhm.
And and it's exciting to have the wonder. Like, it's exciting to have the questions, to want to explore all of that.
Yeah.
And most times it just gives you more questions, right? So you get a
Well,
little bit
yeah.
of information, and then you got more questions. It's a
It's one of
rabbit
the
hole
great
that
things
goes
it
to go.
is. Yeah, it's one of the great things about this universe. You can answer one question, and then all of a sudden you have 10 more questions after that,
Yeah.
after that one thing you answered. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And that makes it exciting. I know that You know, in my lifetime, we're certainly not going to have all the answers, but that's part of what drives me is, you know, how much can I get answered? How many of these mysteries can I solve before I'm gone? And then, you know, you know, you pass it on to the next generation, you know, that so we're not like caught in that, you know, recurring cycle again and again and again. I think one of the things, you know, a couple of things that we're here to do, you know, first, you know, love each other, help each other. And then secondly, you know, with all the knowledge that I gain while I'm here, pass that on to the next generation. So, you know, they have that knowledge and hopefully they pick up the mantle and keep it going. So pass on what you learn.
Right. Agreed. I share it as sharing the gift of who we are, right? And our knowledge and energies. Laura Lee is asking regarding shadow beings. What are your thoughts on the Hat Man and why so many, especially children, see the exact same thing around the globe?
Yeah, I mean, it's more than just children. Sure, a lot of children do see him, but you know, adults see him too. And he's seen in a variety of different ways. I don't necessarily believe it's you know, one being. And so some people are like, "Oh yeah, he's the leader of the shadow people." He's, you know, yeah, and people see him in a variety of different ways. A lot of times it's the fedora and the trench coat. Other times it's like a top hat and a cape. Sometimes it's just the hat. I've heard sometimes a wide brim hat. Sometimes I've heard an archer style hat, like out of Robin Hood sort of thing. So it's like this variety of different things. And you know, there's you know,
I've never
a
really
variety of different. I'm sorry.
I hadn't really heard of Hat Man, honestly, until like 2 years ago. And
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
I know.
Well, one of the
Live
oldest,
under a rock.
yeah, one of the oldest modern stories I'll say of this, because you know the stories of shadow people go back again, you know, thousands and thousands of years, and we even get like you can even find in the spiritualism movement the term shadow people, and you know, like Madame de Esperance had a lot of interesting stories
Right.
about them and this sort of thing. But during the 1950s, like different context, but Albert K. Bender had you know, this was like during the big UFO flap in 1952. He founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau, and you know, he blew this thing up big in like a year. He had this newsletter he was churning out. He had an office. There was a division in the UK. There's another one in Australia, and you know, we're talking 1952. There's no internet. You know, he's doing this through snail mail and phone calls, and the phone was expensive back then. If you making a phone call after 9 p.m., you know, you got those massive long distance or those massive charges, long distance and everything.
It was
So
probably a party line.
right. So, yeah. So it, you know, it was a different environment, but he blew this up big in a year. And then all of a sudden, boom, one day he's like, I'm done. That's it. I'm closing it down. And people are like, what the heck just happened? You know, they had no idea. And he didn't say anything about it. And there's a lot of speculation from the community as to what happened. And then a little more than 10 years later, he does talk about what happened. He calls it, he wrote a book called Flying Saucers and the Three Men. And within this book, he tells of this story that he had come home one day, went up into his bedroom, and then all of a sudden, manifesting through the wall were these three shadowy forms wearing the hats with glowing eyes and smelling of sulfur. Yeah, and basically these beings told him that he needed to stop his research and everything that he was doing with UFOs at that time, and that, you know, apparently, according to him, these beings had they were collecting resources. They were actually extraterrestrials. They were collecting resources down in Antarctica. They were on a 15-year mission, and they were in the middle of this mission. But once the 15-year mission was done and they were off the planet, he could talk about it. So he did. So for Albert K. Bender, these shadowy hat men were extraterrestrials. Other people from the ufology community listen to the story and they're like, oh, those are the men in black. Right.
Right.
And when I first heard the story, of course, I'm thinking, well, it's the Hat Man, you know, paranormal shadow people. So it's like, okay, three different, you know, the context is, you know, three different types of things, but it's really was, you know, the shadows. So it almost kind of depends on your perspective sometimes.
Right. I thought there was some kind Oh, it's Slender Man. That's the other thing that the kids
Well,
all create. Like, so I just didn't understand all of that. So
yeah,
if
it's
it's
been
not,
a while since I've talked about Slender Man. Yeah, he's yeah, that whole thing has kind of died down a bit. Here's the interesting thing about Slender Man. I mean, for one, it was a fictional tale. It was interesting the way that that just kind of metamorphosed with storytelling
yeah,
through an internet form. So that was really interesting. But Slender Man wasn't a shadow being. His form was white. He was white, and he wore a suit. Of course, he didn't have a face or anything, which I think is why people kind of related to the shadow person phenomena. Because he didn't have a face and he was kind of creepy like that. But it was a white face and he had white hands and all that, and he wore the dark suit. But yeah, not a shadow person.
interesting.
Yeah.
I think for some of those where it feels like a hot topic, I don't have the energy to engage in heated conversations. So what kind of snacks do you bring on paranormal investigations? That's what I'll ask.
Oh, there we
Like,
go. There we go.
are you sweet or salty? Do you grab coffee at 2 a.m.? Do you believe that you have to wait around till 3 o'clock in the morning, or does it happen during the daytime too?
Yeah, that's always funny for me because yeah, we're gonna go to like this haunted museum or something where the docents there talked about seeing all this paranormal activity while they were taking a tour group through. And the tour group was being brought through at like 2 p.m. So by all means, let's go there at midnight. That
Right.
that never made sense.
No.
Why wouldn't you go there at 2 p.m. when the,
Yeah.
activities well, of course, the place is open and they've got people milling about or some of these other things. And I get that, like, at night, the noise pollution from outside, from traffic and things like that die down. And you're not going to have like the type of shadows from the sun coming through the windows. But yeah, you don't have to do paranormal
No.
investigations at, midnight, 1, 2, 3 in the morning.
No. At 9 o'clock, I want to be in my pajamas with my dogs on the couch.
Right. I mean, the whole
Sometimes
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes I don't mind staying late, but
the whole thing with doing investigations that late was, it was done for television. It gave you that kind of creepy cool factor for TV, so everybody started doing it that way.
right, and made it a belief system, and it's so not. And
Yeah,
um, wherever you are on your intuitive journey, I
yeah,
know for me, I don't even have to be at the location to tap into it, so I can
there you go.
tap into it from the couch with the dogs if I. But I like history. I like
Oh,
museums. I
yeah.
just want to
I
check them.
like visiting these places, of course.
Right? Okay, a book that you've read repeatedly that you still love and you would recommend for people to have on their shelves. Besides all of your own, all of your
Which
own.
Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Oh, I have a whole entire shelf there. I got, like 3 different versions of the book, different illustrated versions. I've got, like, the Silmarillion. I've got the whole history of Middle Earth there, the, Unfinished Tales, like, the whole thing.
Love that.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't know why that was surprising to me when you're a Dungeons and Dragons and
You're right.
those things. That should have been a guess. I'm feeling not very psychic currently. I should have known.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's funny, Laura Lee. Yep, 3 a.m. no matter
This is
somewhere in the
true.
world. Yeah,
Yep. Somewhere in the world, it's 3 AM.
that's so funny. Do you prefer to so for myself, the paranormal investigations going somewhere is kind of like I know that we're still researching. There's that
Mhm.
aspect too in the questions that we have, but it is a redirect and fun, maybe not the right word, but it's a redirect from the everyday stuff that I'm doing in paranormal community and the work that I do. So does it feel like that for you? Like what's the fun part? I guess where it doesn't necessarily feel like work that you look forward to or that you give yourself permission to do.
Yeah, I mean, it like any of the research and writing, I mean, the thing is like when it's a passion, it's not work. Like, people
Agree.
people say, how much do you, work per day? Like, doing what I do because I've stepped away from my day job a little more than a year ago, which definitely was work. It was soul crushing, all
Right.
that. So, I'm doing what I'm passionate about. I mean, there are some aspects of it that can be a little tedious, like
Right.
sometimes, with, like I do like doing the longer form videos and things like that. So to kind of break things down and make, the TikTok clips, but that's what everybody's watching. And it's like, oh,
Right.
okay, it's tedious to kind of like clip out all the little, uhs and this sort of thing. Or when I can like take a breath, it's, people want that clip fast. And it's like, okay, that's kind of tedious, but that's the way people are consuming content these days.
Right.
So for
Which is
me,
replacing TV. There's no need to have a
yeah,
television show anymore.
yeah,
It just posts on TikTok because
right.
videos go viral with cats.
Well, and television has changed where, our TV is, what we have for television shows, you're not getting 20, 25 shows a season. You're getting like 6 to 10, but they're really, really high quality. It's like a longer form movie that's
Yeah,
split up into chunks. So yeah, I mean, all that has really changed. So, yeah, so most of what I do, I really do enjoy between the research and the writing. I mean, I'm going to these amazing locations and, capturing all this, I mean, it's video content, but I'm loving being there too.
right,
And then I try to share as much as I can with the world through, I
right.
have my connected universe portal that has got, I couldn't tell you how many thousands of hours worth of video back there that people can go out there and consume
That's
from all the
amazing.
adventures. I'll do like, sitting over here at my desk, I'll do these, Mike's morning mug videos and things like that, where just, kind of updating people and
Which
stuff
I
that's going
which
on.
I love. I How long have you been doing that? Because I do the same thing. I've been doing this thing called Morning Porch, I don't
Mhm.
know, 9 years now, maybe even 10.
I mean, I was doing
I love it.
probably close to 15 years.
Yeah, I
It's been
love
a
it.
long
That
time.
morning
Yeah.
coffee, here we go,
Yeah.
let's get started, right?
Yeah, I'll make that post on social media so that little, and I'll share an article. Hey, I came
Yeah,
across this in my feed. Here's, something that's interesting. And while I don't do a Mike's Morning Mug video every day, I make sure, because I have a lot of other things that I'm doing, and make sure to do at least one a week where I'll pick one of those, or maybe something else that's going on that's, really
yeah.
important. And I'll, kind of sit down and do that kind of video blog sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun, like, because people look forward to it, and they'll say, "Oh, I started my day off with you, had my coffee with you this morning," and
Right.
it's
Yeah.
lovely to engage that way. And I didn't mean for it to sound like we don't love what we do, but we just get, where we've been doing one particular thing, whether it's editing even the videos,
Mhm.
what's that thing that you can redirect that fills your cup up
Right.
outside of that, right? Um, Contessa, I saw your comment. I'll stick it up really quick here for you. You and my son could be
Nah.
friends. Everything of it, The Lord of the Rings.
Nice. That's
But
awesome.
it's all
Yeah,
just
and my kids love Lord of the Rings too. So, yeah,
you hear the
so
music and you just get excited. You just
absolutely, yeah.
you
One of the, I'll say this, one of my favorite moments, of all this stuff that I've kind of been doing, um, actually came when I met John Rhys Davies, who played Gimli in Lord of the Rings. And,
oh, wow.
it was one of those moments where it's like, I'm a participant. I'm actually not sitting at a table. And I went up to his table and, I was looking to get, an autograph. And he looks at me, he's like, "You look familiar." I'm like, and it's like, well, I've done some television work. And he's like, "Oh, really? What?" And I started, Ancient Aliens, and his handler squealed. She was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Oh, looks like you have a fan." And so, yeah, so we start chatting and everything. It actually
Love
does
it.
start to like it click. It's like, "Oh, okay, I do know this guy." And we start talking about writing, because he's like, "Oh, how many, what kind of, what have you been doing with your writing and all this sort of stuff?" And he starts telling me about how he's been working on a graphic novel, and that he had actually originally wanted to be a writer, and the acting was a side gig, and the side gig, turned out to be his real thing. The whole while, there's a line behind me. And we're going on for like 10 minutes with this. And then, so funny, at the end of it, he's like, "So, how many books have you written now?" And at that time it was 13. I'm like, "13?" He goes, "You bitch." And I'm like, it was great. It was great. It was a great conversation to have. Like, here's a guy that's, made it. He's had an amazing career, you know, uh, one of my favorite characters between the Lord of the Rings, between Indiana Jones. He was
Yes.
also in Sliders, all these different things. And he recognizes me. We're just chatting like we're the best of friends, and
I love
that
that.
was really cool.
And that's what Michelle is sharing. Loved him in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing, isn't it? When we're meeting people and we may feel they're a little up and they are interacting with us because we have the same passion, and it just puts us on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yeah.
just on the same page with the same passions. I love that for you. I'm very excited for you that you were able to leave the soul-sucking job and do the things.
It has its challenges, it's
For sure it does.
yeah,
It's a
because
scary leap when you do this full time.
it is, and I made sure I had certain things in order and all that, um, but yeah, it was one of those that it's like, yeah, I could stay in the job now for another 20 years or whatever, but if I don't do this, I will wonder 20 years from now, what if I, what if I did, that sort of, I don't want to have like any sort of regrets like that. So yeah, it definitely has its challenges. Certainly, I will say, doing this full time like this, I am doing more work than I
I
previously did
know.
because, now
Yes.
it's like, okay, I don't have the, day job to fall back. I could go back and get it, but I don't have that to fall back on for income. I have to make it happen with everything else that I've been doing. And it's polling, whether it's, I have a speaking gig over here or, like YouTube doesn't pay anything. There's a couple of bucks over there, but like book sales over here or whatever it is, it's trying to cobble it all together to keep going forward. And it's a
Yeah.
challenge, but it's like, to me, it's worth it given this is my passion. This is what I'm doing, and I'm helping to share with the world these different experiences. It's ultimately, again, it comes back to we're all helping each other, and if I'm doing
It's
this full
true.
time, there is a better chance for me to be able to help more people.
That's right. And I believe that 100%. I started doing this full time 18 years ago.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
what I'm doing, and it was a huge leap.
Mhm.
And it's the gratitude in it. As soon as and I'm so grateful, and you can tell that you are grateful for your life and grateful for the opportunities and grateful for the people that
Absolutely.
you meet. And it just more comes. Like the more that we share, the more people want of what we have that we're offering, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree.
Well, Michelle is everyone's cheerleader. She's so wonderful that way.
No, thank you, Michelle. I
It is
appreciate that. Yeah.
inspiring because there's so many people that have gifts to share,
Mhm.
and that would help. And it's scary. It's a scary leap, but
It is, and it's just it comes down to, I mean, believing in yourself. I mean, yeah, you're going to be nervous doing it. Am I doing the right thing? All you're going to have those thoughts come in, but yeah, it just have that belief in yourself. And I've been through all kinds of weird, crazy things and situations in my life, and I've never completely fallen myself. I've gotten down to the depths, but I always say, like the universe, kept the handhold, like, don't let go. Right. It's like,
yeah.
okay, I trust you, universe. I don't know what we're doing here, but I've been through enough of those moments like that where it's like, and I finally got to a place where it's like, I'm going to try this, and I trust the universe is going to keep holding my hand through this.
So, and you trust that you're going to see the signs and know when you need to take action, because there's
Yeah.
more than just like trusting the universe is going to bring it to you in minute. We're co-creating, so we have a
Well,
part
yeah.
that we have to be responsible for, right?
Yeah. Keep your, yeah. I mean, of course, yeah, keep looking for the signs, and again, yeah, there are struggles, and so you work through those, and um, yeah,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
exciting. Where can people connect with you?
Oh yeah, MikeRicksecker.com. That is my primary website. There's the learning portal that I mentioned before was or is connecteduniverseportal.com. And then yeah, I'm all over social media and everything. So yeah.
Apparently TikTok. TikTok's a hard thing to adjust to.
TikTok. Yeah, and it's changed over the years. So I got in on that early, like 2019, and like I was one of the few people that was doing paranormal stuff back then, and so my following blew up big, like real early, where I got like I
Good
was
for
like
you.
almost 200,000 followers 5 years ago. Now it's like 158. So I've been bleeding followers for a long time because it's just, TikTok has gotten flooded with a lot of people. The way that,
I don't
the way
understand.
that the content is portrayed out there is very different now where, there's just a bunch of different stuff. So yeah, it's kind of fallen off, but I still have a nice following out there, which is great. But yeah, YouTube, of course, I do a lot out there, and Shadow Dimension. This fall there will be a second installment of that, so be on the lookout for that. And then all the events that I have going on. So I'm going to be speaking MUFON Symposium here in July. Of course, I'm going to be there at Great Lakes Paracon in October.
Do you know what you're talking about?
I don't know yet. I'll probably do, because it's my latest book, probably Stargates and Portals. But if they want me to do something else, I've got probably half a dozen different presentations at least. So yeah.
Are you able to bring books to sell there as well too? That's a bit of a
So
right.
I've been looking into that. So because I'm my own publisher as well, I have my own publishing company. I publish about 15 different authors. The one printer that I use, Ingram, they do have a Canadian office. So I should be able to just ship books from them to there without like the international fee, because it would be from their Canadian office. So I should be good there. Otherwise, yeah, I'd be driving up with a bunch of books.
No. I'll meet you at the time slip spot. It's somewhere between Sault Ste. Marie and Wawa. I'll leave a note.
Nice.
And you can find us there. Sandra, we're really looking forward to it. We are looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
And again, there's just so many things that happen in Thunder Bay as well too.
Yeah, and the other big thing is, we got the Egypt tour coming up here in November. So Stargates of Ancient Egypt. So that's our annual tour, and we're going back in November.
What happens there? Can you tell me about that? I'm sorry that I don't know about that.
Yeah, no. Oh my gosh. I mean, there's a lot that we do. So yeah, one of the things that we're doing is, we take you to the locations where it's right there in plain sight. Stargates is written right in the hieroglyphs. This is a Stargate. But we have a lot of interesting or a lot of nice features on this tour. Like our group, we get 2 hours just ourselves in the Great Pyramid, and all the chambers are opened up to us, which is fantastic, because half of it's closed off to the public, but we get the whole thing.
Wow.
There's a 4-day now cruise on this tour, and we're also for the first time going to the Egyptian labyrinth on this tour this year. So yeah, we do a lot of amazing things.
Did you see that photo of the sarcophagus that was just opened up, and the fingers look like alien fingers on the imagery that they took?
Yeah, that was a hoax. The whole alien sarcophagus with the little pyramid and all that stuff. Yeah, that was a hoax, unfortunately. So
people suck.
Yeah, they do. So
can we time?
It was a really well produced hoax,
wasn't it? It caught my eye when
this should be a film. Yeah,
it caught my eye. That caught my eye. Imagine being inside. So, how many people go on the Egypt trip with you? How many people?
We usually like to get about 15 to 20. I mean, we can take as many as sign up, but we usually like to get about 15 or to 20. Keep it like a smaller group. Yeah, it's nicer when it's a more intimate group. Yeah.
Interesting. And do you chant? Do you channel inside as well too?
Well, it's interesting about that because, people do. And so when we go into the Great Pyramid, it's you'll have an archaeologist assigned to your group. They're the ones that basically have the keys and let you in and all that. And like people will bring, like they might bring equipment and things like this. People will do like breath work. I've been in there when people have been doing breath work before, or doing meditations and things like that. What they will say is, we don't, the archaeologists be like, okay, I will let you do this. You can't take photos of you doing this. So yeah, because I mean, there is certain different things, because like, okay, when people bring in equipment to be able to do testing within the Great Pyramid, you have to get like permits and things like this. And it's like, I got like a chromatic tuner and a, tri-field mirror. Nope, you can't take video. You can play around with it, but don't take any video of it. And so,
can you auto record? Can you record in there, or
you can record like photos, videos, all that sort of thing. And so as I've been going around getting my my own little videos and that sort of thing, oh yeah, I've recorded people.
Well, I just wondered if you were
that way. Here we go. Yeah,
if you've able to pick up another language as an EVP while you're there. If it's somewhere that you've been going, has something other than English shown up as an EVP, because that would be pretty cool.
I mean, as an EVP, I really haven't caught a lot of EVPs out of there. I haven't necessarily been, trying to do like a straight up paranormal investigation in there either.
Right. And it doesn't have to be the
yeah.
intention for one. Sometimes that stuff just pops in randomly.
Right. Sometimes it does.
I love it when it's random.
Right. Yeah. And I've had like, oh my gosh, it was an investigation we were doing years ago, and I had my audio recorder on, and we were just setting up. We weren't actually doing the investigation. And, we were discussing between ourselves kind of like our strategy for the investigation that night. And the EVP that picked up like right there was somebody saying, we shouldn't talk. We shouldn't talk. And sure enough, we got nothing that evening. It was like, wow, they conspired against us. They heard our strategy and said, yep, we're not going to interact with them.
But that's still a gold nugget piece right there.
Oh yeah, it really was. That was.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I've been doing in Egypt has, even though this installment of the Shadow Dimension is going to taken partly in place there in Egypt. It was more of, I was looking for the connections back to earth energy, back to their beliefs in the shadows, and really how this is more of something of different dimensions. So yeah, I wasn't really looking for EVPs and things like that. It's been some of the other like ancient knowledge that I've been there for. So I do a lot of work because this is the fourth time I'll be there. And so
having aliens click sounds, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah.
Just something. I don't know, but that sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to connecting in person in October. Yeah. So Gail, 2 questions. So or not a question necessarily, but Lucky Paranormal. So Gail and Mel Willis are hosts, and Mish is commenting, asking if that is a kangaroo on the top shelf.
Kangaroo on the top shelf. So I'm guessing you're meaning these. So, don't drop it. So some of my Egyptian stuff. So that's Anubis, made of alabaster. And that's Bastet.
Amazing.
Just the cat. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for
sharing
your energy and space and your knowledge. I appreciate you and all that you do to share and teach and educate all of us. So I appreciate you.
Well, and I thank you. And again, thanks for having me here. This was a wonderful conversation. You have such a wonderful audience.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for being a part of the chat. You guys help make the show what it is. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. And please stay tuned to UPRN. Jeffrey Pritchett and Jay McNicholas are up next with Church of Mavis. Have a good night, everybody, and we will see you next week when Azra Beckham will be here talking about alien DNA. So we will see you next week. Good night, everyone.